Hi, how's everybody today? I wanted to talk a little bit about a really, really big initial tool that will help as you are trying to connect and understand energy. Because we get so distracted from everything that's going on and from our own selves, egos, minds, physical bodies, etc., that it's often hard for people to truly understand how to connect to the energy to decipher what is actually happening and what they and their soul connects to. So this is a big piece of the moving all the extra stuff away so that we could really, really connect back into ourselves. And it's an ever evolving process. It's something that we all, no matter what level we're at, can continue to practice, to get better at, and to to evolve to a new level at in every moment. And as we know, all we have is the now moment. So that is the biggest place where the only place where any change can truly happen. So as we're trying to connect back to ourselves and to understand that since energy is truly the only thing that does not lie, once we can feel and understand how the energy within ourselves connects to the energy that's being presented to us in whatever it is we're trying to decipher, is when we truly start to see our true selves, understand our true selves, and understand what resonates, what's true for us. And as I've mentioned many times before, what's true for me may not be true for you, and that is perfectly okay because we are not all going to have exactly the same truths. That is part of what makes us unique, and we just together would need to understand that each one of us has our own truths, and therefore we can live side by side while realizing those truths and helping each other in whatever ways that we can, because the only absolute truth is that love is love. And in infinite love is something much bigger than most humans even could understand or have been able to understand, because we are in this society, in this 4D dynamic, and we have been veiled from it. So, that being said, the biggest start and the biggest opening to truly starting to live every single moment naturally, subconsciously, on an energetic from an energetic standpoint, where we can very much easily feel and see what our truth is in any given situation, because we are now so used to how our energy responds that we are able to much more quickly than ever before decipher what is true for us, and therefore make split second decisions that are actually truth for us, and not something where an expectation, a belief, a societal conditioning has decided that for us before we gave ourselves the chance to see what at our core was true. And the biggest opening to that is creating awareness. Awareness is a huge word for me. I love it because it, in all my coaching work and all my helping other people from a client perspective and for myself first and foremost, if awareness is not there to something, same within the world, but if there's no awareness to it, we don't send energy or put energy into something to keep it, change it, you know, evolve it, grow it. Nothing can change if we don't have the energy focused into it. And the only way that that can happen, obviously, is if we are aware of what it is we want to make a change to, or what it is we want to continue to keep at a level that it already is, because we can very much keep certain things. We don't have to change everything, right? And that's within ourselves, and that's within the world. And so the awareness is, I mean, it's a lot of what's happening in 2020 is there's a lot of things that are coming up from, to use the outside world as an example that should be, much more easily understood, would be all what we feel is chaos is things being brought up so that we have an awareness to it. Now, a lot of us may feel still confused, still that we're being told untruths, and that very much is the case in a lot of it. But the point is that if it's coming up and being put into our awareness is the only way we're going to be able to transmute it, transform it, change it, make sense of it. There's so many different things, but if it's hidden from us, then it doesn't matter, it would just stay the same, because our awareness wouldn't be able to then put some focus, put some energy into it to actually see it in a different way. So, excuse me. So I wanted to talk about awareness for us, because part of living our truth is to really come to a point of understanding ourselves and our core selves and what at the core resonates. And many of us have problems, all of us do to a large, to certain levels within ourselves, of really going into that core, because we have so many layers that are in the way. And the first tools to use is to have an awareness that you need awareness to everything. So there's a couple of different ways, there's many different, but a biggest one is in any circumstance to have an awareness first and foremost to the mind talk, the brain, the talking to ourselves. We all have it. But oftentimes when we're in a situation, the first thing that happens is the voice that tells us to do, to not do, etc. So first you have to have an awareness to that, so that you can transform that. You can go back and say, thanks, mind, but I don't need that right now. I want to clear it so that I can actually feel, see, hear, understand the energy. I don't need what was built into my head as a natural response. Okay? So a part of that is like an awareness to a belief coming in, an awareness to expectation coming in, an awareness to judgment coming in. And all those are coming from places of what we've experienced in this life so far. And they are all mind talk based, and they are all there as a comfort. Our mind works that way to protect us, and we have a habit of using it to protect us. So when something happens, you hear a loud noise, your mind's going to say, are you safe? Like, what is that? Check it out. And it is a lot to do with the survival instincts that we have. But we have, in this 4D dimensional reality that we live in, we have been brought up learning that that's important, that we are protecting ourselves by listening to what our mind says. So when you have an awareness that you can first, that's the place to start, right? And it's not going to go away like that. Like, oh, I have an awareness and now it's not going to be there. Of course not. Just like if you want to run a marathon, you can't never run before and then get up the next day and run a marathon. You would have to train. So for the awareness piece, the biggest initial step is to just start being aware. To, in a circumstance when good test is you see a news headline or you watch the news on TV, and I know a lot of us have this, like, who's telling the truth, who's not, or they're not, they automatically aren't, they automatically are. And if you really want to decipher what's true for you, that's a good practice to use because we will automatically be taken to where we are safe, where we are used to, where our minds will take us out of habit and make an assumption without actually feeling at our core what's true or not. So that's a I don't like, I mean, I don't watch the news, but and I don't want to say that you should be watching the news if you don't, because you should not. If you don't, if that's not good for you, you need to do something that resonates with you. So even a television show, etc., you can, or a song, from the radio, you are able to use any of it, even a conversation with a loved one, and in your head say, oop, my first thought was, and just have those random times where you can look at that and see and be aware to it, because it's going to start to train you to realize that my first thought is coming from, my first thought was based on the fact that I expected that person to lie. My first thought was because I expected that from a person who loves me, etc. So it's very random, and you're not going to sit here all day and just do this, but if you start to integrate that a little bit into your life, you will start to understand where a lot of the thoughts are coming from. And each circumstance, they may be different, but it is often, almost always, coming from a place of protection within you, a place of security, a place of expectation, habit, because it's what you are used to. And your mind will always go to what it's used to because it feels safer. So start to see some of those in certain circumstances where you're able to spend a little bit of time in your own self to understand. And as you do, you'll be able to transform those, because you'll be able to talk back. Thank you. I understand that you're telling me that's not true, because we always believe, that was a belief that we had, that person was always telling us untruths. But I now want to make that decision on my own. And what happens is you start to clear those thoughts that we talk to each other in our heads about. And you start to bring them down where they're not so prominent, where they're not so immediate. And the more and more and more we practice, the more and more we train, it becomes a little bit clearer and clearer, and less talk within our heads, and more where then we can say, excuse me, then we can say, all right, this is happening, this person's saying this, and instead of the thought immediately going to, that's not true, that is true, that's out of love, that's not out of love, instead of that happening right away, we say, no, body, what does that feel like? What am I feeling in my body? And your body is sensing the energy. Your body will all of a sudden say your heart races. What does that mean for you? Now, again, it's a practice and it's a learning. So when my heart races, it's going to mean something different for me than when yours does. But the more often that you notice the senses within you during certain times, and then you figure out what was true, what wasn't, what feels right, what doesn't feel right. So if your stomach turns, it might not be a truth for you. It may not be something good for you. It may be something you need to separate from. If all of a sudden you have a warm feeling, or you feel loved in a circumstance which has nothing to do with love even, then it's your body's telling you that this is good. So just like anything else, you're going to have to figure out, based on these different ways of being aware of what's actually happening, how all of these things resonate for you. If something really makes you not feel good, you need to trust that instinct. That is your intuition. That's your soul. That's your core telling you, nope, this isn't true for you. And when you feel something that feels really good, then you're going to be able to say, you know what, I believe that. I never did before, but now I feel like I know it's a truth for me. It just feels so good. And of course, there's that whole area in between, and it becomes hard, to try to decipher it all. But the more that we train and the more that we practice and the more that we hold awareness to everything that's happening within ourselves, the closer we will get to our core. So I hope that was a little bit, I hope that was helpful or resonated for many of you. Awareness is huge, and the biggest awareness to us being able to transform ourselves from a 3D, 4D learned experience into a multidimensional being is to figure out where our thoughts and our bodies are reacting to. Are they reacting to what was learnt in the 3D reality and not truly what's at our core? And then there's a whole area in between. And that whole area in between is what we continue to learn, evolve, expand, decipher. And as we do more and more, we stop talking to ourselves so much in our heads, and we start understanding through an energetic understanding, feeling, that what is true, and it helps to make some quicker decisions for ourselves, and it helps to put us on a path that is more aligned with our soul selves. So I love you, and I will talk to you soon.